What about a nightmare on offense? Marvin, one catch, as we outlined in the first segment, again on 2 targets, I think, 2 or 3 targets during this game. 3 targets, I think. He had the phantom missed pass interference call. All coming, it felt like in the first half, or certainly most of them. Again, you can say what you want about K1 missing the throw at the end of the game. You can talk about Marvin and Kyler not having chemistry. If you're an offensive play caller in 2024 and you've got a number 1 receiver that mirrors a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, that's what we've been told, and he's your number 1 guy, that's inexcusable. Like, you can take a loss today and Marvin can have, a little bit more, and maybe I'm sitting up here, singing a different tune, Bo, but to not even have him a part of your game plan, to be an X factor, to be a focal point, what were you doing all week? I mean, it's inexcusable to me. Elijah Higgins has more receiving yards. DeMercado has more receiving yards than the 4th overall pick in the draft.
Right.
You're not going to get many people on board with what you're doing schematically if that's the case.
No, it's inexcusable. And when you've got a player with the playmaking ability of Marvin Harrison Jr., you say you get the ball in his hands, and being conservative 2 to 3 more times, that's the difference of the game.
Yeah.
It's the difference of the game.
He's the number 1. If you're going to treat him and you drafted him to be your number 1, right, there's no number 1 receiver that's going out there that says, I had 3 targets. That's just not acceptable at all.
Yeah.
So, there was never a time where you saw in Larry's prime where Larry went out there and he had 2 targets in a game. Mm-hmm. No. You have to find ways to get the ball to him. Right? If he puts the ball on the ground, if you give him 8 to 10 targets and he puts it on the ground and is not catching it, that's a different thing. But to end the game and say, this is my number 1, and he had 3 total targets in this entire game.
Let me ask you this, because Larry obviously was already established for any time, even when Kurt Warner came in and earned the job and they make that run to the Super Bowl, and then, Cobb, whatever, and then Carson Palmer was coming in try to resurrect his career.
Yeah.
It was Larry's team. I doubt there was, correct me if I'm wrong, there's probably no moments between that duo where Larry had to go to Carson and say, hey, I need more targets or I need more looks. How does Marvin Harrison Jr. go about this? Despite this being his first game as a pro, how does he go about this? I mean, he joked about what his dad said one time. Marvin Sr. said, you got to, complain about targets. It's just part of the job. How does he go about this?
I think this is one of those things where you can't do it in the public eye. This is not something you can't go on into the media and say, they got to give me the ball more, because one, that's going to put you on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And probably one you don't want to be on. But even the big guys, they're going to go talk. You go see your OC. You go see your head coach. You have a meeting. It's a one-on-one thing. They're like, look, right, you brought me here for a reason. Me going out there on Sunday morning and having 3 total. I had 1 catch for 4 yards. Yeah, I put 1 on the ground. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. Everybody does it. But I can't end this game with 3 targets. You've got to find ways to give me the ball. And you can do this in a manner that's not condescending. You're not being
rude.
It's just the fact of you've got to have this conversation. You need to establish it now. And you also got to talk with your quarterback. Right? There's, we talked about the wide open streaking down the sideline. There's so much into that we don't know what was going on.
Sure.
Right? All we see as fans is, why didn't he hit it? Why didn't he make that throw?
Right.
Why didn't he throw it? And there's a ton of other stuff going on. Right? You can see the film later on, and we can judge it there. But Marvin has got to go talk to all of them, coaches, quarterback, figure out a way to say, hey, we got to find a reason, a why, but I need to have the ball thrown my way more than 3 times.
Can I just say something real quick, too? I see a lot of people on Twitter and even in the chat, coming after Kyler Murray. And obviously you would rather have him throw a game-winning touchdown at the end of this game. I get that. But, I mean, he played out of his mind in the first half. Can we not just completely throw that aside?
Yeah, he lost the right tackle, too.
You can't dismiss the performance. You want to complete a performance.
Right.
It was at the end of the day, it was a losing performance.
Right.
There was encouraging things that happened, but then there was also on display things that need to absolutely change, right? And of course, there's often with things like there's people who are way extreme about it, and some people are too forgiving, and then it's probably somewhere in the middle.
He was unstoppable in the first half against Buffalo's playoff defense. Does he need more time with his receiving targets? Obviously. Did they fumble that? In my opinion, yes. Did I love their gameplay in the second half? Did he miss some throws? Right? Did he pump in the pocket when he should have hung on to the football? He made mistakes. No one's saying he didn't make mistakes here. But, people are acting like on Twitter, like he's Daniel Jones or something.
Yeah.
Like, come on, what are we doing here? They were up 17-3 when he left the game in the first half. They just scored again.
He didn't have the game-winning drive. He didn't have the legacy drive that everybody wanted, and they want to point to it and say that's why he's not the guy, and that's a ridiculous claim.
This
is ridiculous.
They won 4 games last year, and again, like they're in a position to win the game, and they didn't get it done. Like,
right.
You needed to make a throw, he didn't make. It's understandable. We move on. But, like, to sit here and say, like, to lump him in with the same caliber of personnel issues you have, like, defensively on the defensive line, like, I see a lot of people doing that. Might as well just start over. You have no pass rush. You have no quarterback. What are you talking about? It is up to Drew Petzing now to get 4 complete quarters out of Kyler Murray. Because and I think a big part of it, too, guys, is, I mean, Britton, he balled out in the first half, and then he sat most of the second half because the defense couldn't get off the field.
Right. Well, that. And defense couldn't get off the field, and the offense couldn't sustain drives, especially to start the third quarter. And that's the complete opposite of what we saw in the first half. The offense sustained drives. Like Bo was talking about, they had 13-play drives, 10-play drive, 13-play drive. I mean, you took, in the first drive of the game, you took almost 8 minutes off the clock.
Yeah.
And got a touchdown.
Kyler was in complete control
of the entire game.
He was dealing. He was throwing a
that
James
first
Conner,
half, he
Dortch,
was in charge of
McBride.
everything.
Yeah. Michael Wilson.
You changed it. I mean, I don't know what changed at halftime. I don't know if it was like, hey, we can just kind of settle down here and try to control the game.
I hope not.
I hope that's not what it was, but it just the last drive was a play calling issue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, and you said it earlier, like, I love the targets to Greg Dortch. We love to see that boy play. But at the end of the game, if we're throwing a jump ball in the end zone, I got a 6'4" receiver that I'd rather throw it to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just – and obviously pressure has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Kyler was under duress, and he had to get rid of the ball or take a sack, and you're not taking a sack on 4th down. So
their number one free agent signing in the offseason, at least on offense, and Jonah Williams, left the game after the first possession. I mean –
yeah.
And you got a guy in Kelvin Beachum out there who should not be starting for anybody. And now if Jonah Williams is out, we'll find out more on that, Bo.
We all silly like the mayor.